Hello, traders and potential traders. This next episode we're going to go through is going to be all about the appearance tab. Now, when you go through here, you'll get a fairly mundane color setup. And to some people, that doesn't really seem to bother them. To other people, maybe it is important, right? So, when you look at this initially, you don't notice just how big of a difference it could be, you know? But what happens is if you want them to be very vibrant, what I've found is the most brilliant color setup is going to be in the center of the color spectrum for green and red. So you find your center, and then you go 5 up from the bottom and 5 down from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Puts you dead in the middle of the color spectrum, and that will be the most vibrant color. Select that for the green. We come in here, we click on the more, we select it for the red. Now, interestingly enough, when you're setting this, for some of your indicators, if you find like your VWAP studies or your EMA studies are too bright, you can always come in here and click on any one of these, right? You can use the RGB or the HSV, either one. HSV tends to be the easiest. It's just the second one down. And you can set the transparency down as low as the 70s or the 80s. And what that does is the color is there, but it blends into the background unless you tend to click on it and then it immediately highlights like that. So if you need something subdued on one of your indicators, I highly recommend it. But when it comes to your actual candles, I would leave it at full opacity. All right, now on this appearance screen, you can change another setup and you can get rid of the fills if you would prefer your candles to look empty. Where this comes in handy for you is maybe you're one of those people that like to see your indicators move through the candle bars and not be obstructed by an opaque view of a completely filled out candle. And there's nothing wrong with that. Another thing some people like to do, or maybe there's some marking you need to do on your chart, is to get rid of the wicks. Now, sometimes that helps people, sometimes it does not. I particularly like the wicks, but there are times when I may change this and get rid of the wicks just for appearance's sake. Now, you'll notice on my crosshairs that they're fairly vivid, right? And they usually come in a subdued gray. So that's one of my first and foremost is I like to change my cursor over here to one of the very bright blue options. You know, something that's going to give me a color that will really stand out. And center, and instead of 5 up, I only go 4 up from the bottom because that's the one I particularly like. Okay, your volume bars, you can have them to match the same color of your candles, and what people usually do with that is it lets you know if you ended on a green or if you ended on a red candle. So it kind of lets you know how much volume was there. And primarily that volume will either be red in price, meaning the candle closed out lower than it opened, or it will be green in price, saying that the candle opened here and closed higher value, and that'll make the volume bar green as well. Or you could select a preset color, such as black, which will get rid of your bars effectively, and you won't be able to see your volume indication. Or maybe you want them something that is color appropriate for you. Whatever you select, you know, it's not my place to tell you it's right or wrong. You have to figure out what's comfortable for you. All right, next up, this background. It normally comes standard with like a light gray background. I don't particularly care for this. I find it distracting. I would rather have the as black as possible. If it's too hard on your eyes, there are some people that go with a white background. I can't trade that way. It just doesn't work for me. You have to do what's appropriate for you. Now, one thing I will tell you about this is the grid option. Some people find this grid option very appealing. When I first started trading, I really wanted that grid because I wanted to see where I was going, but I had no idea that this was actually affecting the way that I trade. Fast forward a while, and now that I have a much better grasp of what I'm doing, what I have come to discover is that this grid being anywhere in the picture tends to make me think I'm going to see a bounce point at one of those locations where there's a grid line, and that does not always happen. So I find it to be very distracting, and once you lay other sets of data over onto your chart, you'll find that these grid lines become extremely frustrating to have all this extra pattern going on. So I just prefer to get rid of it, wipe that out, and have the grid non-existent and clean up the chart. You notice how there's a lot less going on, even though this is a very vivid amount going on. Here, I'll get rid of some of this. Actually, you know what? I'll just get rid of all of it because y'all don't need to be looking at my indicators. But great way to clean up your chart. Great way to make it vivid. And that's about all you need to know on this appearance tab. If you have something that's visually distracting to you, chances are one of the first places that I personally would go to for trying to get my brain waves to match what my eyes are seeing, play around with your colorations a little bit. You might have it off slightly. I've seen people that trade quite frequently and their candles are like an orangish look to them, and that really throws me off. But it could just be on the way their charts are being shared or whatnot that it comes across that way. I don't know. I just know that once I finally made it into the realm where I was comfortable enough to say, no, you know, these things are important to me, and this is the way I like to see them, I found that using the color coding that works best for me made a huge change in my comfort level, and my comfort level makes a definitive difference in the way that I trade. That's all I've got for you on the appearance tab. I look to see you soon on the next video.